Alrighty, well, let's move on to the running back position. And, it's always tough to find those running back sleepers. It feels like the top guys are always going in those first few rounds, but there are some really intriguing names this year going after round 10 or so. And I love the first one. We just talked about the Colts. I love this one on your list, Nyheim Hines. What do you like about him, Pat?
Yeah, like part of it, Wolf, is the way I generally build. Like if I'm in a league where I have to start 3 wide receivers, I'm not getting caught short at wide receiver. I'm like pounding that position early in drafts. Maybe going hero running back with the guy in the first 2 rounds there, but probably waiting a while to get my second running back because I'm so busy attacking wide receivers. So it'll come a certain point in the draft where I'm looking for a guy who's just kind of like a high floor guy to, a guy I can throw in there in a PPR, half point PPR league, get my double digit points hopefully every week and, kind of just destroy people at the wide receiver position and, maybe hopefully fight to a standoff at RB2. And I think that's what you're going to get with Nyheim Hines. I think he can go back to having the sort of season he had with Phillip Rivers 2 years ago, where he had like 7 or 8 touchdowns and right around 900 yards from scrimmage.
RB15 in PPR leagues.
Yeah, and that's it, man. Like in PPR leagues with Matt Ryan, a guy who will not hesitate to dump off when the pressure comes. Like that's the thing. Ryan just like whoever's open, he's throwing to that guy. That's always been the quarterback he is. Just like find the open guy, regardless of who he is. So I think that's going to suit Nyheim Hines really well. Carson Wentz, not so much. Wentz is not a dump-off guy, and this is just such a better situation for him.
Absolutely. I think that's a great point. And Reich himself said, I'd consider drafting Nyheim Hines. We all saw that quote back in OTAs, and ever since then, every beat writer in camp, you're seeing a bigger role. He's moving out to the slot. Ryan targeted his backfield 25% of the time in 2021 compared to 9% for Wentz. Creative ways to get the ball in his hands. I love it. I think he's definitely going to have a big rebound. And I think people are more pricing him at what happened last year, whereas we should be looking at that season. He was third in running back receptions and targets that year. Maybe not quite at that level, given how breakout of JT's season was last year. But yeah, I really, really like Hines. I have nothing but good things to add on there. 2 of the guys I have highlighted, I can kind of lump together. Damien Pierce and Brian Robinson. I don't know how much longer, certainly Pierce at least, will be going outside of pick 100. But maybe Brian Robinson even creeps towards the top 100 now because they are 2 of the biggest preseason risers, 2 very intriguing rookie talents that are just showing out right now, both potentially starting for their respective teams. I think Pierce certainly has a better chance at starting right from the go. I mean, a 4th-round rookie not playing in preseason week 2, that tells you all you need. I don't know if that's ever happened in the history of the preseason, but he has looked so great when we have seen his limited glimpses. I think averaging over 9.8 yards per carry and just showing all the things that everybody kind of talked about in college. Why is he not getting more usage? Why is Florida not feeding this guy when he's 4th best in broken tackle rate and scoring a touchdown every 7.4 touches? Insanity how efficient he was. I've seen Kamara comps in the sense of just underutilized talent that goes to the pros and is finally utilized the right way. I wouldn't be shocked. The guy does have a 3-down skill set. 5'9", 218-pound, like Maurice Jones-Drew type of bull. I love the kid. I think he's a great position to be a starter. So even if he does creep out of that after pick 100 range, even if you have to get him in round 8 or so, I'm into Damien Pierce, and I like Brian Robinson. I think that one's a little uglier. I think, even if he's starting, it's going to be a 3-headed nightmare. It's kind of the reason why everyone's down on Gibson. It's not like Brian Robinson's going to escape that. But what he did always have working for him was potentially the red zone role on a team that gave Gibson the 6th most red zone carries, 6th most inside the 10 carries, 7th inside the 5. So if that does go to Robinson, and it seems like everybody's suggesting it will, whether it's the coaches or the beat writers, even if he doesn't start, that's already a great role. But then if he's the starter, very intriguing talent. They've also hyped up his pass catching ability for whatever that's worth. He's not going to take McKissick off the field, but a few screens dialed up on the early downs to keep defensives honest. They're talking about how they love getting the big guy in space, was what Rivera said. So a lot of intriguing skills for a guy that's going after Gibson, but potentially starting over him according to the preseason. What are your thoughts on those 2 rookies?
Yeah, man, I've had to do like a 180 on Pierce in the last 2 weeks because I was always thinking like, I really like this guy. And as you mentioned, he's really pro ready, like not only the running ability, but also like he can pass protect and catch passes out of the backfield all pretty competently. But man, like I was worried about him sharing time with, Mac and Burkhead
Right.
and being on the Texans in a bad offense and just kind of like this is the time of year when you got to start thinking about like you can like a guy's talent, but is he going to score fantasy points for you? And when would you be able to start Damien Pierce if he had that kind of role? Would you be able to start him as a running back 2 or a flex in week 1? And 2 weeks ago, I thought the answer was no. And, when might he be able to prove himself and have that sort of role for your fantasy team? But now, like when, as you mentioned, they're putting him on ice in preseason week 2. Like, we've seen enough. You're good. You're our guy. And, man, he just looked so fabulous in preseason week 1. I've had to bump him up my board for sure. And now, like, I think the answer is, would you feel good about flexing him in week 1? And I'm starting to think the answer is yes. So with you there. And Brian Robinson, a tricky one here. Like, I think he can catch passes. I just don't think he will in year 1 because they've got Gibson and McKissick. And I'm still kind of in on Gibson just because here's this guy with basically Jonathan Taylor's size and speed and has scored double-digit touchdowns in his first 2 seasons and played with a cracked shin bone last year. Like, this dude kind of has everything, and now everyone wants to fade him because they're sort of, putting him on kickoffs and yo-yoing him a little bit in the preseason depth chart. Like, it's a hard read for this situation, but I'm not ready to think that Robinson is going to have a big enough role where you can put him in the starting lineup for your fantasy team in the first few weeks of the season. I'm not quite there with him yet. I really like the talent. I'm in on him for Dynasty for sure. Basically, I've got some other like rookies I'm kind of chasing. I'd rather have Rashad White, I think, in that spot. If I'm looking for sort of a rookie running back 4, running back 5.
Well, I have Rashad White on my list of potential sleepers. So, I'm with you there too. I'm kind of looking at Robinson. If the dreaded fumble happens early for Gibson, they're clearly showing like they're going to have a very short leash. So, yeah, I'm with you. You probably can't toss him out there week 1, but there's a very real chance he's going to be starting and potentially even like featured on the early downs if Gibson fumbles this thing away. But also, I think that might be getting a little overblown too. Like the punt, they're punishing him clearly. Like they're trying to send a message, and message taken. I think we might be taking as fantasy owners the message a little bit too hard, and he's falling to a point where like I've seen him go after 100, 115 Gibson. It's like, oh, the talent's worth betting on at that point as well. But yeah, you mentioned Rashad White, another rookie that, like, unlike Pierce, probably can't start him from week 1, but a guy that I'm landing a lot. What's your case for White? And I'm happy to add on after.
Yeah, just that I don't think Fournette is going to have like the role to himself the way he did last year. Like they just with Brady, there has to be someone you trust in pass protection and pass as a pass catcher. And like Ronald Jones was not that guy for the Buccaneers last year. He's just a train wreck in the passing game. So, and with Giovanni Bernard hurt last year, it all sort of fell to Fournette. And there's a chance that this could not work out because Gio is there this year, and maybe it's just, the 2 veterans, and we don't get to see White have much of a run his rookie year. But if anything happens to either of those 2 guys, like White can catch passes, he can pass block. So he comes into the league pretty pro-ready in the pass game. And, man, like I think we're going to see more of Brady dumping off, especially with just the middle of that offensive line getting ripped apart by retirement, free agency, injuries. If there's one thing, I'm sure you know this, Wolf, being a Patriots fan, like if there's one thing Brady hates more than like late night carbs or Bruce Arians, apparently, it's pressure up the middle. Yeah. And he's probably going to get a lot of that this year. So that's good for whoever's in the backfield with him. And if at any point that becomes Rachaad White, suddenly he's a guy who could make an impact in fantasy.
Absolutely. 6th best PFF running back receiving grade of all time last year. McCaffrey, Kamara, Eckler, some of the names ahead of him. Not bad company to be with. 5th all time in yards per route run. And that metric, again, McCaffrey, Mixon, Travis Etienne, some guys that are really, really elite backs that he's, as a pass catcher, right up there. The staff complains Fournette's ad-libbing his routes too much. I don't know if that 100% matters because what Brady wants, Brady gets. And if Fournette's his guy, he'll be out there. But Fournette has missed 3+ games in 4 of the last 5 seasons. So if that door opens up, the GM did praise White as a true 3-down back. We saw the same exact coaching staff. It was David Johnson when he was a rookie. They kind of kept him on ice for most of the year. Starter goes down. Chris Johnson was having a solid year. David Johnson comes in and wins your league. So whether he's starting right off the gate or you hold on to him all year and then just bam for those last few weeks, could be just one of those type of players that absolutely swings the league. So I'm there with you 100%. The only other guy like going before the late round guys, we'll talk about a few stabs. I wanted to toss out Kenneth Gainwell is just the quote unquote high leverage back behind an offense I think is going to be even better. I'm just avoiding Sanders completely because Gainwell goes 50 picks later and we get the more valuable touches, the red zones, the 2-minute work, the passing down work. I mean, you saw 50 targets, 11% share last year, 20 red zone touches, 6 TDs on him. He's a good explosive player that's getting the money touches. So give me him in a backfield that I do like because of the line, because of the offense improving. Give me the guy that's getting the best touches 50 picks later. I like Gainwell a lot.
Yeah, me too. I'm not totally out on Sanders, but it is kind of a backfield that interests me just because the offensive line is probably the best in the league. And, there you get that benefit of having the running quarterback who, do those RPOs and freeze the linebackers for a split second. And we've seen Miles Sanders be pretty efficient as a runner, maybe not as a touchdown scorer, but his yards per carry has been pretty good. So then maybe Gainwell could benefit from that too. He's definitely the better pass catcher than Miles Sanders. So yeah, I mean, I think we're seeing that gap between the two shrink in drafts, but Sanders is going to still go ahead of Gainwell, and entirely possible Gainwell is the more valuable back this year.
Absolutely. Well, I spent more time on that range of backs just because after 150, I love the receivers going late. So I almost would rather talk about those guys more than the running backs. You're looking usually at handcuffs in that range. And there's some interesting backfields, whether it's the Arizona guys, if one of them emerges, Darrell, I might bet to do it, but Eno's apparently ahead of him. Who knows? So now that's getting a little cloudier. I like what this Jalen Warren kid's showing in Pittsburgh as whether you have to draft him or a guy to flag down in case something ever happened to Najee. It looks like he has a real 3-down skill set and could beat out Benny Snell right now running ahead of him. Dontrell Hilliard, if something happens to Henry, or maybe even, not, because he's the lead pass catching back right now and making plays every day in camp. Really showed out the few times he was used last year. I don't mind them. I guess if you're looking for a usable guy, I toss out McKinnon, Boston Scott, and maybe even Amir Abdullah now with Kenyon Drake gone. Could be that kind of, they're saying, the James White role there. I mean, everybody's getting handed the James White role apparently on the Pats or on the Raiders. But man, they always do have a pass catching running back in that Pats offense. And Abdullah seemingly outplayed Drake enough to have him get cut. That could be a guy that does get you some nice receiving work and can be usable. That's going largely undrafted right now. So those are a few names I wanted to toss out there. If there's anyone that you liked from there or any other names you want to toss out, Pat, and then we'll move to receivers.
Yeah, I'll mention two real quickly. Zamir White as a rookie.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy he's not going to really catch passes for the Raiders, but man, this guy is just such a violent runner. And, if they do decide to move on from Josh Jacobs sooner rather than later, they've already elected not to pick up his 5th-year option. Zamir White could definitely handle that early down load, and maybe with kind of a shaky offensive line, they need a guy who can make his own holes. Mm-hmm. And, Jacobs is a tough inside runner too. I'm not going to take that away from him, but Zamir White is man, that guy is just a bull in a china shop when he runs. So I like him a lot. And Dearness Johnson is kind of interesting. Like, the path to playing time is not clear right now, but, Kareem Hunt has expressed some unhappiness with his role. Yeah. And, I feel like either Hunt or Dearness Johnson could get moved. Hunt may be the more logical candidate, allow the Browns to maybe recoup just a tiny fraction of all the draft capital they gave up to get Deshaun Watson. Right. And then suddenly, Dearness Johnson could become the number 2 on a team that likes to use multiple backs, has a good offensive line, is probably going to want to play ball control with Jacoby Brissett for the first 11 weeks of the season. And I think Dearness Johnson was PFF's highest graded runner last year. Ooh. So, he's popped whenever he's gotten playing time. I don't think there's star potential there, but he could be useful for sure if something happened to give him a little bit bigger of a role. So he's a guy I like to take a shot on in deep drafts.
Yeah, I remember that Thursday night game. I mean, I think he was the top 5 running back that week where he got the start and just looked really damn good. He's not the most athletic guy, but the vision, the way he was good. He's a good player.
Ran all over the Broncos that night. Yeah.
That was a while. I remember I had him in the top 15 running backs. Felt like a leap of faith, and then clearly he was even better than that. Yeah, he was a stud. So if he comes into some playing time and behind that line and that zone scheme, definitely a guy to keep your eyes on. What is up, you fantasy wolf? Thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, share your thoughts in the comments, check out some more videos, and join the newest Wolfpack by subscribing below.